Hello everyone, welcome to another video here on Motorcycling Endeavors, and welcome to another episode of Heritage Side Chat. Today we are going to talk about livable wage, and in particular its effect on tax base and the impact on the community. Have you ever read an article or seen a local news broadcast where they talk about maybe underfunded schools or underfunded fire services, or there's no parks? Have you ever seen or heard a local candidate talk about how we need to invest more in education or invest more in the community? I mean, perhaps you turn into a one of those national divisive news networks and they blame Republicans for everything, or they blame the Democrats for everything. I'm pretty sure you have, because that's a lot of the cases around the US today. But the one thing they don't talk about is tax base. They don't talk about livable wage, because that requires research, time, and journalism, which we know it's not going to fit into a quick 4-minute segment on the news or actually draw ratings in for a national broadcast. But it's a very important concept that people do need to understand, and as to why some regions or districts in the country have everything and others lack or have nots. So what we're going to do here today is just give a brief, simplistic overview on how it all works, just to kind of give you that baseline idea, so that when you hear or read articles or such, or if you want to go challenge your politicians, you'll have some knowledge and kind of understanding of what the big driving factor is of haves and have-nots. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's just say that you have a region, and in this region you have 3 districts: District A, District B, and District C. Each district is responsible for funding their K through 12 education systems, their public services, which is police, fire, and EMS, and their public works, roads, sewers, government buildings, etc., so forth. Okay? Let's just say that each of those cost, to be fully funded, costs $2 million a year. So let's go 2 million here. So 2 million for here and 2 million for here. Okay? And let's just say that each district gets their funding by taxes. Okay? Makes sense. And taxes are set by the region, and it's at 10% per household. So all things equal straight across the board. And to keep the equality thing, making everything's equal, let's just say that there is 1,000 households per district. So, quick recap: 3 districts in a region, each responsible for K through 12, public services, public works. To be fully funded, it's $2 million, regardless of district. 10% tax per household, 1,000 households per district. So let's start really breaking this down and looking at the numbers, because this is where it's important. Let's just say that District A is a livable wage district, okay? And that livable wage district in those households is $75,000. Okay? That's what they've got. District B is a poor district, okay? They're poor, all right? Their household annual salary is $25,000, okay? District C is a blend, okay? For simplicity, we're just going to go 50-50, half livable wage, half poor. So half, so that's 50K per year. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. If you say, Mr. Endeavor, is that really realistic? Well, let's look at this. 25K is about $12 an hour, right? 12 per hour, okay? $50 an hour is roughly 24 per hour. 75K is about $36 per hour. So yes, it's very, very realistic. So as you can imagine, a $12 an hour job isn't going to get you very far. It's going to keep you poor. So now we know that each household is taxed, and that tax rate is 10%. So we know that per household here is 7.5K in tax, right? We know this is 2.5K tax, right? And this is 5K tax. Okay? So, per household, 1,000 households per district. Total income here, 7.5 million. Total income here, 2.5 million. Total income here, 5 million. Okay? So, right now, this should be, your wheels should be spinning because you probably know how this is going to work out. So, fully funded is $6 million, right? 2, 4, 6. So be fully funding is $6 million to fully fund everything. Okay? Okay. So let's break it all down so we fully understand it. District A, livable wage districts, is able to fully fund everything. And they will have a $1.5 million surplus, right? With that $1.5 million, they're able to offer community things, right? They're extra. They may be able to have a parks department. They may be able to offer veteran services. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible. They may be offer veteran services. They may be able to invest in education. So they will be able to use their budget surplus to offer better things for the community. Okay, so the livable wage here provides fully funded everything plus. Okay, let's move over to the blended district. The blended district has a $1 million shortfall, right? Has a $1 million deficit. Okay, so what do? Well, it may not necessarily be the end of the world, right? So perhaps they decide to, well, they can choose to fully fund two things and then dramatically have an impact on the other ones, or they could spread it out. So let's just say they do a little spreading out and they want to offer some community services. So maybe they do 1.5 million for schools, 1.5 million for public services, and 1.5 million for public works, which is what comes to 4.5 million, and then they use 0.5 million for community, right? They want to keep the community cohesive and together, so maybe they do have a small parks department, maybe they offer some kind of extra services, maybe adult literacy programs through the public library. They'll want to do a few things. And is 1.5 million compared to 2 the end of the world? Probably not. You probably assume that the teachers are fully paid. The buildings are in good shape. Police cars are always running. The apparatuses for the fire department's always good. There's never any issues with the roads and such. But there'll be subtle notable difference. Subtle noticeable differences, such as, for example, for the public works, right? Instead of like repaving roads when they need them, they may just do some asphalt patchwork just to kind of get by, Education systems may rely more on community fundraising for athletic programs and et cetera, so forth. Concessions, fundraising, those kind of things. So it's not necessarily end of the world. They're unable to fully fund it, but they can provide adequate services for their community, which is important. So not completely the end of the world. You want to see everything fully funded, but they're not going to fall off the cliff. This is where it really falls apart. Because now you have a $3.5 million deficit. What do you do? Think about that. What do you do? It doesn't matter whether you are a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. When you're faced with that big of a shortfall to fund these three critical components of a community, you're in trouble, right? There is no community services. There is no park services. There is no veteran services. There is no additional investments in anything. There is none. There's nothing to go around. So let's just say that they're able to take their 2.5 million and they divide it equally, right? So they go, what, about 833K a piece, right? Schools. 833 for services and 833 for works. That's a bad situation right there. That's a really, really bad situation, because your schools are going to be so grossly underfunded. Your class sizes will probably be larger. There's going to be demoralized teachers and administrators, demoralized police and fire, demoralized public works. There's going to be potholes everywhere. If there happens to be a leak in the school roof, the roof may be repaired, but the stained tile may be up for a couple of years because they can't get to it. This is a really bad situation. Crime will go up. This is the problem, people. This is the impact of having a livable wage job and a non-livable wage job, and how they impact communities, because what they're able to spend on is so grossly underfunded here that there's almost no recovery here. Very tough to recover from that. Community will always be in decline because of this, because they're poor, because there's little tax base, and because there's no livable wages. So some may say, Mr. Endeavor, why don't we just give them money? Why don't we just take some of the surplus from District A and turn it over to District B to kind of help equal it out? That's dumb. That's not a good idea, because it does not address the underlying problem, okay? The underlying problem is not the lack of money. It is this right here. This is low because of this. This is the ultimate problem. In order to fix this, and I mean fix it, not throw money at it, fix it, this needs to be introduced into this. And that is easier said than done. People with livable wages do not want to move to poor areas. The schools are bad. The roads are bad. Infrastructure's bad. Okay? They have an option. So unless this District B is able to attract people with livable wage jobs, no matter how much money you throw at it, it will never solve the problem. So what has to happen? You have to bring in people with livable wage jobs. How do you do that? How do you do that? That is the billion-dollar question. How do you do that? You have to create area where livable wage people want to go, right? So how do you do this? Well, there's a very, very controversial way to do it. It's something that nobody likes to talk about, and it creates a lot of angst, but it is the way to do it. And you ready for this? I might have spelled that wrong, but that's gentrification. If you don't know what it is, look it up. You got to gentrify. You have to start creating areas in the district where livable wage people want to live. Okay? So if you are a planner of District B and you somehow got an extra, say, $20 million, sure, you could dump that all into your public works, public services to K through 12 and just adequately fund those for a few years. And then you're going to be right back at the same problem. Or you start investing. Maybe you start investing in schools first. You start beefing up your schools. People with livable wage wants to send their kids to good schools. You start working with development firms, giving tax breaks to buy up land, buy up old house, strip them down, rebuild them, make them look good, repair the infrastructure in that area. It's going to be more expensive. They're going to charge more because you have to charge more you have to charge more to get the tax base. So they're going to be livable wage districts, livable wage areas within the districts. So you have to turn this tide. You need to start bringing livable wages in here to drive this up. And that is not a bad thing. It is not totally a bad thing because at the end of the day, the community ends up benefiting because maybe you gentrify, people move, and you maybe have two different segments of the district. But collectively as a whole, right, you start shifting to the blended district. You start making everything manageable. Okay? I know this is a lot. My handwriting's messy. But this is what tax base has an impact on the community and how livable wage jobs can affect it. The United States does not produce livable wage jobs, period. When you look at the jobs report that comes out and you'll see all politicians, doesn't matter whether Democrat or Republican, hail, oh, unemployment's going down, it's the lowest in years. Yeah, but what kind of jobs are they? This. $12 an hour jobs. The U.S. doesn't produce this. That number is so low. And that number is declining all the time because we're cannibalizing the middle class. We're cannibalizing livable wage in this country. So this is the tough situation that city planners and mayors and governors are in all the time, because you'll have haves and have-nots. And the only way you can fix the have-nots is that you have to draw more income to those areas. You can do that with gentrification. I don't know how else you do it, because you can't just give people money because it doesn't solve the problem. You gotta have livable wage. It is the single most important cornerstone of a successful community. Livable wage, increased tax base, more for your community. That's the difference, people. Okay? So please go ahead and share this with people that you know, or people who may not really grasp the concept of tax base and how it really impacts on a community. Perhaps you'll go to some candidate political rally and they start talking stuff, and then you just talking smack about how you got to reinvest, and then you can start breaking out the tough questions like how do you improve the tax base to be able to make it sustainable. And they will probably look at you like a deer in the headlights and go, oh crap, because they probably haven't thought of that, or they don't think that their population is smart enough to understand that. But this is a big deal. This is a big deal, and I want you guys to understand it. Tax base, tax base, tax base. That is really impacts your community. And you gotta have livable wage jobs to increase the tax base so that you have more positive effects and things going on in your community. Better schools, better public works, better public services, more community, parks, all that good stuff. I wish America produced a lot more livable wage jobs, but we don't have that option here in this country right now, because there's not a lot of high-paying jobs for low-skilled workers. And America, unfortunately, has a lot of low-skilled workers. So, anyway, that's the video. I hope you got a lot out of it. Like I said, my handwriting's bad. It looks a little messy, but hopefully this gives you the idea and gives you a good understanding on how tax-based livable wage and how it all ties into the community. I just want to make you guys smarter and do a little more teaching of what I know to make all communities better. So anyway, have a good one, and I'll see you at the next video.